What's up, YouTube? Tenchi Arizona, the angry Dracolope of the Jackalope crew here. And well, I know there hasn't been any long form videos from me in a while, and there's only really been one short in the last 2 weeks. And in this video, I'm going to explain why. Now, off to my right, you should see a leather-bound journal. On this side of the screen later on in the video, you'll see some images. So, let's get this show started. Now, the issues we've been having in this house, we being me and my housemate, started about 2 weeks ago. Or at least part of the issues started 2 weeks ago. And that was that the fuse board was tripping one of its RCDs, which in itself is pretty innocuous. It could just be the RCD was reaching the end of its lifespan, but it seemed rather suspicious to me that the RCD kept tripping at set times during the day, specifically between 4 PM and 10 PM at night, and 6 AM and 10 AM in the morning, sorry, not PM, 6 AM and 10 AM in the morning. So that seemed rather odd to me in and of itself, because the rest of the day the RCD behaved. So not this Friday just gone, but last Friday my housemate phoned up the landlord to get an electrician to come in. Now, at the time, my housemate was away at his partner's, so I was alone to deal with the technician, well, the electrician. Still, let's make it easy. Electrical technician, because that's what an electrician is anyway. So he came in, he didn't even check anything. He just looked at the fuse board, went upstairs, looked at the plug points up there, not individually, didn't circuit test them or anything. Then came back downstairs, looked at the plug points down here, again didn't circuit test anything, didn't check the fuse board properly to see if there was any faults on the RCD itself. After that he left, saying there was nothing he could do because the fuse was not tripping at the time he was here, and he was here about 11:30 to 12 o'clock on Friday. That's last Friday, not this one just gone. So he left. My housemate was back on the Saturday, and while he was back, the fuse board continued tripping the RCD. So roll around to Monday morning, we called the landlord again, or should I say my housemate, Ken, called the landlord again, and he sent another electrician out and sent the boiler guy out, because by Monday morning we'd figured out that the friggin' boiler was what was causing the RCD to trip. Now, the component that was causing the RCD to trip was the heating pump, which had been replaced a year prior. However, it had been replaced with a used heating pump on a boiler that was already 16 or 17 years old. So bear this in mind. So the boiler guy and the electrician came out again on Monday. My housemate was still here on Monday. And well, the boiler guy told us that the boiler needed replacing, and the electrician told us that the fuse board needed replacing. Which is kind of suspicious, because the fuse board was originally replaced in 2018, just 5 years ago. Fuse boards generally have a lifespan of 10 to 15 years. Boilers usually have a lifespan of 25 years. Make of that what you will. So, Monday was relatively quiet. This Monday, just gone. And the total post-apocalyptic shit show started on Tuesday morning. Now, on Tuesday, the boiler guy turned up around 10 a.m. and there was no issues at the start of his day. He managed to get the old boiler disconnected, got the water main turned off, the gas line turned off, and got the boiler off the wall and got a new one in. A glowworm boiler is what the new one is. Lovely boiler, works fine. However, this is where the shit show really starts, because after he'd put the boiler up, the new one, he went to move his ladder and ended up falling through a hole in the kitchen floor. A hole that we had reported about 3 months prior, and the landlord never sent anyone to fix it. So this is where it gets fucking annoying for me, because on Tuesday my housemate went back to his partner's and I was left dealing with the workmen. Now, to his credit, the boiler guy was a pleasure to work with. He got the job done quite efficiently until he fell through the fucking floor. And, well, him falling through the floor is probably beneficial. As nasty as that is to say, it's probably beneficial that he fell through the floor. He didn't get injured, by the way. Because had it had been my housemate who fell through the floor, those of you who've watched me for a long time know he has back issues. He's had several spinal fusion operations, and he's due back in hospital on the 28th of this month due to a CSF leak, cerebral spinal fluid, for those who are not in the know. That's just a microsurgery. He'll be in and out same day, but he'll be recovering for about a month or so before he can travel long distance or anything like that. Anyway, once the boiler guy fell through the floor, he called the landlord. Obviously, he's one of the landlord's staff. He called the landlord and got the structural repair guy out. So, structural repair guy arrived just as the boiler was being finished. He wasn't going to do any work while the job was being finished up. And when he turned up, he stated he wanted to investigate the damage once the boiler install was finished. And the boiler install, by the way, is what leads to a problem that had been persisting for a good 5 or 6 years, possibly even longer than that, which was the gas meter out the back. Because obviously when you install a new boiler, you turn the gas main off, and when the boiler guy went to turn the gas main on, he decided not to do it on grounds of safety. Instead, he capped the gas line and turned off the supply into the house. Which means that even though we've had a new boiler, we would be without gas to fire that boiler until the energy supplier got their asses in gear and replaced the meter. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. One, because my housemate had already phoned the energy company up to get the meter replaced on multiple occasions throughout a 5-year span, and even before that, but for this video it is the 5-year span that's important. And secondly, because the gas meter was 32 years old. They're supposed to be replaced every 25 years. So, because the landlord's gas guy, the boiler guy, decommissioned and capped the gas line due to safety concerns on the original meter on Tuesday afternoon, as the boiler guy was leaving and as the structural guy was turning up, the energy company turned up and replaced the gas meter, which then necessitated the boiler guy coming back to uncap and commission the boiler, because the gas technician that caps the gas line has to uncap it. That's how how it works over here. I'm not sure about in the States. If you know, let me know. Anyway, so at that point, after the new meter was installed and it had been uncapped and the boiler commissioned, everything was peachy in terms of the heating, and also an electrician had been in that same morning to replace the fuse board. Bear in mind the fuse board was only 5 years old, the original. The new one though is a metal fuse board, basically a metal fire enclosure, so if there was any electrical fire it'd be isolated to the fuse board, so it's safer than the original. Also, each fuse has a circuit breaker on it now, so that's better. If something goes now, it's just going to be one fuse, not every single fuse on the top or ground floor of the house. Boiler happened to be on the top floor fuse set. So that's the boiler started. The boiler's been recommissioned at this point. The heating is back on at this point. The structural guy is investigating the damage. He ripped up the lino, and well, what started off as a 10-11 inch diameter hole, which is what the boiler guy fell through, upon investigation, I'll put an image up here, 2/3 of the kitchen floor had to be ripped up because where there was a washing machine in the kitchen when we originally moved into the house 29 years ago, there was severe water damage to the floor, and that entire 2/3 of the floor you see ripped up was rotten. The joist had to be reinforced with new joists because the originals were rotted out. One of the joists that had to be pulled out was so rotten that the structural guy didn't even need tools to pull the joist out. That's how fucking rotten it was. So, from Tuesday afternoon to about midday on Wednesday, kitchen was completely unusable. 2/3 of the floor ripped up, the rest of the flooring solid enough, but basically with that massive hole in the floor, unsafe to use. Now, bear in mind, this is this Wednesday, my housemate was still away, so not a big deal. I can live on takeaways for a couple of nights, which I ended up having to do anyway, conveniently. Anyway, Thursday morning, second image here, he's put in new joists, reinforced the joists he could not replace with cement and brickwork under them to stop them from collapsing any further, and installed a new subfloor. 3/8 inch or 1/4 inch chipboard, I'm not sure if I'm remembering dimensions correctly. I think it was actually 1/4 inch to an inch. I don't know, fuck. I don't remember the specifications of the chipboard he put in as the subfloor because honestly, I really wasn't paying any attention to that because I was kind of preoccupied speaking to Ken on the phone, letting him know that the work was proceeding. When I say 3/8 and 1/4 inch, I'm probably off massively there. It's probably closer to an inch thick. Anyway, basic structural chipboard. So, yeah. At that point, floor's solid. Absolutely fucking rock solid. Actually, the new section of floor, the new 2/3 are more solid than the floor that is still safe. Safe. So, this took all of Thursday. By the time he knocked off on Thursday, he'd finished doing that. And now we come to yesterday. Now, yesterday the only thing he could do was screed the floor. See third image. And, well, that took him the better part of the morning, and he went through 3 20-kilo bags of latex self-leveling floor compound. Basically a cement with latex in it that allows it to remain somewhat flexible once it is cured. This is important because, well, the joists, although he's reinforced them, are not 100% solid. So he screeded the floor. It should have been set in about 3 hours, and by set I mean set to a walkable state. I checked it after 3 hours, it still wasn't walkable, so I left it overnight. It's now just walkable this morning. Credit to the structural guy. He's done an amazing job throughout the whole process, considering he was sent on his own, which means I had to help him get materials in so he could do this repair. Now, as a tenant, that is not my responsibility. However, given my housemate's back issues, which I mentioned earlier, spinal fusions, and him going into hospital the 28th of this month for a CSF leak to be fixed, yeah, I was going to help that structural guy get his materials in and his tools in so he could get the fucking floor fixed. Now, the floor is safe and walkable now, but the job is not finished. And the job will not be finished until sometime next week. Excuse me while I take a drink. This talking is drying my fucking throat out. So as you could see from those images, the floor is now safe and walkable. However, like I said, it's not going to be finished till next week. My housemate is due back today in about 3 hours. So basically we are still kind of without a kitchen. We can now, as it is safe to walk on though, we can actually get to stuff we might need. However, movable appliances like microwave and whatnot cannot go back in the kitchen until the floor is completely finished. So we are kind of limited what we can do at the moment until that is finished. Now, as you will see, I did post a short 3 days ago of the eponymous Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That was after the workman left. It was actually about 3 days, 18 hours ago. So yeah, nearly 4 days. So moving on from this point, the kitchen floor has got to be finished being repaired, which means new lino or laminate, depending what the landlord decides, put in the kitchen. The movable appliances and rubbish bins and whatnot have to go back in the kitchen once that is done. Basically bringing this house back into a normal semblance of functionality. Now, as I said, the energy meter goes back the gas meter goes back at least 5 years. Why the boiler guy capped it is he deemed it completely unsafe. A stance I completely agree with, because when the energy supplier came to replace the gas meter, their technician went to turn the big old nut to disconnect it, and instead of coming unscrewed like a nut should, it fucking disintegrated. And I don't just mean, oh, it's split in half. I mean it literally fucking disintegrated. As into tiny pieces. Almost dust. That's how badly it was corroded. Which is fucking insane that we had been using that gas meter for the 29 years that we have lived in this house, because as far as I could tell, it has always been in that sort of condition. And up until the gas guy from the landlord, the boiler guy, up until he decommissioned it and fucking capped the gas line, the energy company wasn't going to do anything. Needless to say, the floor issue was also the same age, 29 years old, and all our reports about the floor sinking, because it had actually subsided by about 2 inches, 3 inches maybe, all our reports of that, the structural guy found out that they had not been logged in the maintenance books at all. However, that might not be surprising when I tell you who our landlord is. And if you're British, you will know this name. Dave Wells Properties. It is now owned by his son Steve Wells, who sadly is still cutting corners left, right and centre. However, some of his contractors are now absolutely marvellous, such as the boiler guy, such as the structural guy who has spent the last 3.5 days fixing the floor. He's off the weekend, he'll be back next week to finish up the job, doing the lino or laminate, whatever. So that is why there have not been as many shorts as I usually post in a week this week. It's also why there haven't been many long form videos from me in the past couple of weeks. I was planning to do some with my swords, be it my katana or my kama, but the weather for the last couple of weeks has actually been rainy, so I hadn't been able to do that. This long form video hopefully isn't too long, but now you know what's going on with the house, and hopefully we still get moved. The plan for the last 7 years has been to move to the United States, but I have to be honest here with how my housemate's health is going, specifically regarding his back. We don't know if the States is going to be possible because he might not be able to fly in the near future. He might be, from this next procedure, he could be grounded permanently, no flying at all, which honestly would be less than ideal because that would stop us from moving to the States, for one, but it could also stop us moving out the UK to European countries, barring boat or overland travel, which would be a significantly longer process. And of course, with Brexit now, there's also the fact we need visas to move to even European countries, which completely fucking sucks, given how the British government's fucking this country up and how our landlord really doesn't do maintenance until jobs really need doing, meaning something has failed catastrophically. Anyway, that's the update for now. I feel like I've rambled on enough. I'll give you more updates on the move when I can, whether it's going to be stateside or maybe somewhere in the UK. Hopefully it will stay stateside because I really cannot stand UK's knife and sword laws, well, weapon laws in general. And as usual, that's all for now. If you like it, please subscribe, comment and share. And remember, be good to each other.